Hi, my name is Rosina Bakari. Thank you for listening to this important sex talk. Often conversations with adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse and incest reveal that they have never engaged in consensual sex. Childhood sexual abuse and incest can create a dysfunctional and distorted interpretation of sexual partnering. Instead of partnering out of a sense of sexual desire, survivors are likely to partner out of a sense of obligation, fear, or intimidation, which of course is not partnering at all. It's coercion. Coercion is non-consensual intimacy and can lead to rape and sexual assault. It can even occur over time, just like child grooming. Violators may often cross a boundary with a less forceful action, like intimately touching the person without permission. If confronted, the violator may apologize and express insincere concern and care for the victim. However, if the person continues the relationship with the violator, over time, the pressure becomes greater and greater to have sex. The pressure may be physical or psychological, but little by little, boundaries are crossed. Making a person feel insecure about the relationship, withholding resources such as money, intimidating with insults, or insisting that the person owes sex can make a person say yes to sex when they are not interested or ready. All along, the violator is assuring that an emotional bond is created that will prevent the victim from disclosing the eventual violation. This is why most victims know they're violators. This is why adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse are more likely to be victims of adult rape. This is why 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are violated by the age of 18. This is why 1 in 3 women between the ages of 18 and 24 are violated. This is why 80% of rapes go unreported, and this is why less than 10% of reported rapes end in prosecution. Be clear that no amount of pressure should be used to advance intimacy with the person. No matter what physiological response follows the coercion, the act is still non-consensual. Non-consent cannot evolve into consent. In other words, consensual sex never begins with threat or intimidation or pressure. In fact, there are 4 levels of consent that must be obtained between partners. 1, the parties must be legally able to offer consent, meaning they cannot be intoxicated, underage, or emotionally distressed. 2, the parties must seek consent to initiate touching. You cannot forego consent in the name of so-called romance. It doesn't matter if asking permission to kiss someone is sexy. It's safe. 3, the parties must maintain consent, verbally or non-verbally, as the level of physical contact intensifies. Permission to kiss is not permission to touch genitals. Permission to touch genitals is not permission for sex. Permission for oral sex is not permission for penetration. Consent must be requested for each activity. Are you okay? Is this comfortable? Can I keep going? Would you like to do something else? There should be some type of checking in during physical contact in order to maintain consent. Why? Because partners have the right to withdraw consent at any time. The last level of consent has to do with protection from unwanted conception and infections. Partners must agree to the level of protection. If the plan is to use a diaphragm, then the partner has to allow time for that. If a condom is the expected protection, then there must be allowance for that. It doesn't matter how many times partners have had sex, consent is still required. It doesn't matter if the partners are married, consent is still required. It doesn't matter how much money or how many favors have been granted, consent is still required. No person owes another person sex. Unfortunately, much of the world currently operates within rape culture guidelines. Within these guidelines, people can get away with rape because rape has to be proven and there is not much that will be accepted as evidence. Violators know the rape culture well and proceed with confidence, whether it is against children, partners, or strangers. Rape culture ideals contribute to a lack of progress for many adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. When survivors buy into the rape culture ideals, they are likely to blame themselves. Organizations like Talking Trees Incorporated are trying to move the world toward a culture of consent. In these guidelines, there has to be evidence of consent. So instead of bombarding victims with questions about what they did to resist, violators will be bombarded with questions about what they did to seek consent. How did you seek permission? Did you stop at any time to make sure that your partner felt safe? And at what point did you realize that your intended partner had not offered consent? Can you imagine the impact that would have on the world? Could we ever be that serious about preventing sexual assault and rape? Unfortunately, as it stands, many survivors of childhood sexual abuse and incest end up in relationships with people who violate as a pattern of sexual relations. Survivors may be coerced with fear and intimidation, or survivors may experience the freeze response, which prevents them from saying no with their words while their body language is ignored by the violator. Hint, if a person is not active during physical contact, rape is likely happening. Coercion begins with the violator and the victim and ends with the violator and the victim. Rape disempowers victims in many ways, not just sexually. The more they experience violation, the more numb they may become. They may become distant from themselves in order to remain close to the violating partner. They may begin to reject or neglect their own needs, physically and psychologically. Some adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse and incest may remain stuck in the victim mode, not because of the past sexual abuse, but because they remain in sexually abusive relationships. Resolving present abuse may be the key to healing the past. For more information on healing for adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse, check out our website, talkingtreesurvivors.com. Thank you.